I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the Pink, symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Welcome back to the show, Jordan, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too, Jim, and to all your listeners. Excited to see what 2018 has in store for us.
Jordan, as we're speaking breaking news, Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson has said he's not going to run in the next civic election. What kind of a message is that sending?
Oh, I think it's a great one for the region. I think Gregor Robertson has been a very divisive figure in the region. Vancouver's lost all of its sense of leadership in the region. People looking more and more to suburban mayors for leadership because Gregor Robertson, over his, 3 terms, has not been able to provide it. Saw it when he was head of the TransLink Mayor's Council, saw it when he tried to bring in a sales tax, saw virtually every issue where Vancouver looked for support from the rest of the region. He wasn't able to deliver it. So I, for one, will not be sad to see Gregor Robertson hopefully leave political life for good.
Well, doing things like trying to ban natural gas, which people made fun of. Natural gas, something that BC has more than it knows what to do with.
Oh, he's got this long legacy of just goofy, ideologically driven decisions. It started with his promise that he'd eradicate homelessness by 2015. Of course, that was a miserable failure. There was the natural gas ban where, he wants only clean fuels in Vancouver. He was going to switch everyone over to methane. Fortis BC then kind of pointed out that you would need something like 20 landfills the size of Stanley Park in order to create enough methane just to power Vancouver. That was never going to fly. He had to back down on that. The whole bike lane debacle. Think of, I think he's had 2 or 3 Snowmageddon years where snow removal completely failed and our so-called world-class city ground to a halt. Municipal tax after municipal tax increase, popping new taxes on people. Civic government never able to get a handle on the opioid crisis, although, can't blame them completely for that. No government in North America has been able to get a handle on the opioid crisis, but they certainly made an art form of complaining about senior levels of government. So Gregor Robertson, I do not believe will be considered one of the great mayors in Vancouver history. I'm glad he decided not to run.
He will ride his bicycle into the sunset.
Yeah, maybe he took a bike ride in the snow. Is that what happened over Christmas? He took a little ride on the seawall and decided not to run again. It's worth noting, right? Like the TransLink sales tax referendum, which he was the face of, which he fought for, he couldn't even deliver Vancouver for the yes side. The no side won Vancouver 51-49. The writing to me, kind of seemed to be on the wall at that point. Far more people voted no to that tax than voted for Gregor. It's an interesting thing. I'm not sure where it leaves Vision Vancouver. They ran a very weak by-election campaign. They seem to have lost that kind of progressive edge. The Gene Swansons of the world have come out of the woodwork. Adrian Carr, the Green Party, has a lot higher profile. You do wonder if Vision Vancouver is about to, fall apart without people like Gregor Robertson and Andrea Reimer and Jeff Meggs and Kevin Quinlan and all the people that kind of built that party.
Do you think his goal was just try to be named the world's greenest mayor, and after that he didn't care?
Yeah, I think he definitely wanted that green credentials. I think he was very concerned about his legacy as a green mayor, and didn't really care about affordability in the city of Vancouver. Certainly didn't care about anyone whose vision of Vancouver or whose political beliefs differed from his. So yeah, I always found him a very divisive figure. I didn't find him any kind of leader, especially regionally. I'm obviously a South Fraser guy, so I'm always looking at people from the North Fraser who understand There are two regions in Lower Mainland and can find ways to do things that are good for both. That's not Gregor Robertson. Gregor Robertson not able to deliver his much vaunted UBC Broadway subway. That's another failure in his regime. Pretty amazing to see him go. And like I said, it does make you wonder who they'll put up. I guess Raymond Louis will be their mayoralty candidate. Probably is the inside track. It'll be interesting to see if Raymond Louis can hold that coalition together.
Well, he certainly wasn't a fan of returning phone calls because he's now a running joke. It was 2 Augusts ago that I put in my first formal request for an interview, and his staff every week would find an excuse why he couldn't find 10 minutes out of his time to talk to the Goddard Report.
Gregor Robertson has always been good at making excuses. There is absolutely no doubt about that one.
We have the Premier of BC, John Horgan, going to Asia, but what did he forget to take with him?
Yeah, this is a really curious decision. John Horgan is going to Asia, China, I believe India as well, to do some talks and trade and whatnot, but he's not taking a certain cabinet minister who you think would be going along. He's left the energy minister, Michelle Mungal, at home. She, of course, is the one responsible for liquefied natural gas industry, which has been a cornerstone of Asian economic talks in recent years. But Mungal stays home, which I wonder if it's a bit of a sop to Andrew Weaver and his rabid stand against LNG.
Well, what's wrong with exporting something that BC has so much of?
No, precisely. Look, ICBA, we're huge supporters of LNG. These are massive construction projects, massive resource development projects that turn into thousands of jobs, billions of dollars worth of economic activity, more taxes, more royalties. It's good all around. The interesting thing, though, is, of course, Andrew Weaver, has made comments in the past that he does not support LNG, thinks it's a myth, it's a unicorn. Although, there are companies that are exporting LNG at this hour. They're in the business. But for Andrew Weaver, he doesn't think it should exist. Now, given the context of how angry some green-leaning voters are over the Site C Dam decision and threatening to leave the NDP and go to the Green Party, you wonder if John Horgan, by leaving Michelle Mungal at home, is trying to send a little bit of a dog whistle to those people. Hey, stick with us. We're still the party of the environmental movement.
Japan is going to be surpassed by China as the biggest importer of LNG. It's a market that is just begging for clean energy. And I've just been watching ads on TV where they're saying with new kinds of equipment, you can scrub 90% of anything bad out of natural gas. Not that it produces a lot of bad pollution in the first place.
No, and when you compare it to what it's replacing, which is usually coal in China, it's even better. So, yeah, China, world's number 2 LNG importer. You're right, about to go to number 1. You've got more than 1 billion people that you've got to provide energy for. You've got to get it from everywhere. LNG is a natural. And for people who claim, that the market's not there, I would argue, oh no, the market is absolutely there. The problem is the United States and Australia have kicked our butts over the past few years. We keep making it more and more expensive, more and more prohibitive to come into the BC market and export our natural gas. And so these companies have gone to places like the United States and Australia, gotten off the ground. They're already providing LNG to China, but not enough to. You'll never be able to satisfy the entire demand. So we've got to get BC in there and start getting these projects off the ground. But John Horgan has left his energy minister at home. You could read that a couple different ways. Maybe if he is talking LNG, he feels confident enough on the file he doesn't need his energy minister, in which case, you wonder what that signals to her. Or, he's not really interested in talking about energy with these Asian superpowers. He's looking at different trade avenues.
What kind of trade should he be promoting?
Well, you should absolutely be promoting energy. That's number 1. That is something, you're right. We have centuries worth of supply. Let's export it while we can. And you're cleaning up the earth by getting rid of these coal power plants. It's a win-win for everyone involved. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm sure he's looking at following up on the BC Liberals' strong efforts, results in trying to move the forestry export business to Asia. for so many years, forestry, lumber was completely dependent on America, and when Americans started to saber rattle, as they are right now over softwood lumber, or when the economy went to the tank in America, they dragged British Columbia down with them because suddenly our number one, the people who were buying 90% of our wood exports were gone. That's changed. China, India, Japan, big purchasers now, trade partners for lumber. I'd like to see that continue. Let's have some discussions there. And of course, that brings up, the sticky topic of raw logs, which the NDP, when they're in opposition, love to, make political hay about. We shouldn't be shipping raw logs overseas. But of course, once they're in power, they realize just how important it is to the economy and how, we can talk about having more wood manufacturing here, and we should, but, raw logs will always be part of the equation.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after the break.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799. I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic Engineer Gold Mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, something that just came up on BNN was two sources have told Reuters that NAFTA likely will be killed by the U.S. That had an immediate impact on the Canadian dollar. Are you concerned about NAFTA failing?
Yeah, I think everyone in Canada should be. Listen, we are a relatively small economic power in the world. We rely on trade. If we're only relying on our own customers, we're kind of hooped because we only have, 35 million Canadians. That's just not enough to have robust markets for all of our exports. So, if Donald Trump kills NAFTA, oh my word, we are in all sorts of trouble. Anything that makes it harder to trade with the United States is a bad thing. And it's going to open us up to case by case, industry by industry negotiations and battles with America over what we can send there, and all sorts of costs that will be slapped on our products going into America. So, yeah, we should be very nervous if NAFTA dies because it will likely trigger an economic recession in Canada. It's hard to see any way around that.
Canada's also filed several complaints with the World Trade Organization saying the U.S. is violating at least 5 international trade rules. American officials have reacted by saying it's bad for Canada to point out these shortcomings. Does that make it harder for them to be successful around the NAFTA negotiation table? Yeah,
I think it does. Anything that stresses that relationship is going to make it more difficult. And Donald Trump is such a different cat than any other president or head of state that professional diplomats have had to deal with on both sides of the border. You wonder what the trade negotiators, you wonder what their mandate is in the United States. Do they have a clear sense from Trump as to what he would approve, what he wouldn't approve? If they do, they're probably the only people who have a clear sense of what Donald Trump wants. Most of the time, it seems like his administration is operating in the dark as to what his wishes are. Canada, we have to be really careful because there's this temptation, especially among Americans on social media, to use Canada to poke Donald Trump in the eye. The last thing we want to be is on Donald Trump's radar as a problematic power. We want to be, United States friends through thick and thin. Let's make sure that we're working together. Our economy just relies too heavily on America to end up in any kind of trade fight.
And if we did end up in a trade fight, what other markets could we exploit here in British Columbia? Or are we well placed? Because unlike most other Canadian provinces, we do a lot of trade with Asia already.
Yeah, we do a lot of trade with Asia, but we'll need to increase that. We'll need to find ways to do that. And of course, there was the Trans-Pacific Partnership that was going to help with that. That's already dead. So, we'll need to go and look at how we can deal with those powers individually. There's also Europe. We don't do a lot of trade with Europe, but we do some. There might be an opportunity to expand that. Certainly, the United Kingdom, in light of Brexit, might be looking for different kinds of trade partners than the usual European Union. Maybe BC can fill that gap, but it's a long way from British Columbia to London, and goods that ship from us would have to go through the Northwest Passage or would have to go through the Panama Canal to get to London. That's a long way to go, in order to do that. So Asia is by far the most logical one. There's also the chance, Mexico. You could skip America and do direct deals with Mexico. They're a developing nation with more and more buying power every year. But again, certainly have corruption issues and all sorts of problems there that we would have to deal with.
Well, we have to deal with Quebec, so corruption isn't
Sir. Said the honorable members.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, the NDP will be presenting their budget next month. What do you expect to see, and what would you like to see?
Well, I expect to see a lot of spending. A lot of spending. I'm hoping that they stick to a balanced budget pledge that they gave in the election, but, the more you look at their stakeholder groups and what they're asking for, the crazier it gets. I do think that we need to look hard at their economic forecast, because if Donald Trump does pull the plug on NAFTA, that will have serious effects on the BC economy that won't be reflected in that document. And anytime growth goes down, growth starts to evaporate, there's less money for government. That's got to be a big concern. The thing I think we'll see is a lot of these big promises like $10 a day daycare, the housing, 114,000 units of housing. I think you're going to see them push down the line a bit. I think governments are this is kind of the Trudeau model. Trudeau, huge deficits anyways, but if you look at his major infrastructure funding, it comes in years 6 to 10 of his mandate, which would mean the federal Liberals would have to be reelected twice before some of that money was released. I think you'll see the NDP do the same. Push out funding so that there's some pilot projects with seed money in year 3, and then in year 4 there's a little more, and then in year 7 or 8, there's a big chunk of spending. I think that's probably the way they get around this. But hey, the things that they want to do cost money. If you're going to tinker in the housing market and try to make housing more affordable, that means people. It means less money coming into the provincial coffers through the provincial property sales tax. That's bad. Less money coming in through the foreign buyers tax. That would be bad because those are cash cows. If you're going to crack down on corruption in casinos, that will mean less, gambling money coming into the province, which is, good and bad. It does mean less money in government. All these things can start to constrict government revenues. And, carbon tax increase, the increase on high income earners, although I'm not sure 2 married teachers making $75,000 each should be considered high income earners, but the NDP considers them that. So there's a lot of things that could choke off the provincial economy, and if it starts to slip, that's when the red ink starts to mount.
Going into the election, both the BC Liberals and NDP said they would bring in ride sharing, and now they're holding more hearings, more committee talks, more consultation. We may not get a decision until next fall, which means another tourist season where tens of thousands of cruise ship passengers are stranded without a way to get around. Is this thing just going on way too long, and has the taxi industry had too much influence on it?
Yes and yes. This is, one of the flaws with the BC Liberals in the election campaign, and in one of the post-mortems, I think Peter Fassbender or someone blamed ride sharing as a reason why they lost some of the South Asian community, because of course the South Asian community has such a interest in the taxi companies. Obviously a lot of Indo-Canadian families rely on taxi industry income. So they blamed, our stand on ride sharing cost us that vote. The truth is, the Liberals took too long to go with ride sharing. They should have made the decision, opened it up for ride sharing, and got it in place before the election. Because what actually happened is anyone who cared about ride sharing wouldn't vote Liberal because it still wasn't in place. Anyone who opposed ride sharing wouldn't vote Liberal because they were talking about bringing it in, and they ended up with absolutely no support off of that file, rather than at least picking a side. It's a problem. The taxi industry has been one of the largest donors to municipal and provincial campaigns in recent years. They are well organized. They have political clout. They're not afraid to use it. But at the same time, we're the last major city in North America without ride sharing, and it's mind-boggling that a city that prides itself or desperately wants to be considered a tech hub, it doesn't even have a legal ride sharing app.
Now, the thing is, ride sharing is happening, but it's happening illegal. Something like 5 illegal ride sharing companies working in Richmond, for example.
Yeah, it is happening, and it's happening predominantly in the Chinese community. People who have come here from China, where they've seen really bureaucratic and dictatorial government, taking a stand against it and saying, look, it's stupid that we don't have this. There's obviously a need. There's obviously a customer demand for it. We're going to do it. Now, you'd want them to do it legal. I do laugh at how kind of the media and the talk shows use this as like a major scourge, like all these, jerks, why are they breaking the law and doing this thing? They should all be punished, take their cars, all that. Meanwhile, we have illegal marijuana dispensaries on literally every block in this city. And we kind of turn a blind eye to that. So taking aside that hypocrisy, you do wonder, what's the hold up here? Let's get on with it. We know it's coming. It all comes back to a decision made decades ago where government got too involved in the taxi industry. We're now reaping the poison fruit of a poison tree where government's perverted a market. A government taxi license is a couple $100, but sells for hundreds of thousands of dollars on the resale market. Government should have just stayed out of the way of it from the start. Let whoever wanted to run a taxi, and let the competitive market decide who's going to be successful and who wasn't. Now they feel like they owe these people something, and it just makes it really difficult and awkward.
Well, obviously, if there's illegal operations, it shows there's a demand for it, so why not just legislate it and get it going? Why such a big delay?
Well, precisely. I mean, what is the holdup? And we know there's a demand for it. Uber has logged for years how many people open the Uber app in Vancouver. You get off the boat, you open your Uber app, you're looking to get a ride share. What do you mean there's no ride share here? So, we've known for years and years that there's this huge demand. We just need to get on with it. We didn't bail out the buggy whip industry. We didn't bail out the pager industry when cell phones came in. We didn't bail out the CB radio industry when, that went obsolete. We didn't bail out cassette tape. I don't know why we're having to wait and worry about what the taxi industry is going to do. Taxi industry will either adapt or it'll die. That's the way free enterprise works. And I, for one, would suggest that the taxi industry might perform better than people expect up against Uber. There isn't a city in the world that's brought in ride sharing that doesn't still have taxis.
Chair of the Mayor's Council, Burnaby Mayor Derek Corrigan, has commented that we can't build a replacement for the Patullo Bridge between New Westminster and Surrey, light rail in Surrey, which is about to become BC's biggest city, and build the Broadway subway, the Broadway corridor, the busiest transit corridor in all of Canada. He says we can't build those 3 things at the same time. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I agree with him. And Corrigan and I talked about this actually during the TransLink tax referendum way back when, where it takes time for these projects to get off the ground. So, let's put on our historical hats on rapid transit in the Lower Mainland. In the 80s, we built the Expo Line. In the 90s, we built the Millennium Line. In the 2000s, we built the Canada Line. In the 2010s, we built the Evergreen Line. the reason we do this, one of these lines every decade is because, despite our size, we're not a huge tax base. It takes time to kind of refresh the coffers. TransLink itself does not have the expertise to, deliver two of these massive projects at once. Certainly nothing. They can barely deliver one project at once. I mean, look at the Compass cards and the Fairgates and how those were years late and tens of millions of dollars over budget. They're not good at these kind of projects, and I think Derek Corrigan understands that better than most, as he's been a mayor for 20-something years and was a BC Transit chair at one point. He's seen this movie before. I think he just has a very realistic view of TransLink's expertise. So yeah, I don't disagree with him. Like, Pattullo Bridge should be the number one transportation priority in this region, simply because a piece of infrastructure is 81 years old. It's coming very rapidly to the end of its usable life, and if that bridge has to close for safety reasons, what the heck is going to happen? You've absolutely got to make that job number one, and you've got to prioritize these things. These mayors have talked about a 10-year plan forever, never wanting to prioritize the three major projects, Pattullo, Arbutus Subway, or Surrey Light Rail. Well, the time has come where you're going to have to actually decide which goes first, which goes second, and which goes third.
Jordan, was there anything else you wanted to add to today's conversation?
Yeah, just I think the TransLink thing will be interesting in light of the provincial budget. What money will the provincial government have in there for TransLink? What year will it be in? I think that will tell us a lot about just how strong the relationship is between the mayors and the NDP.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Their website, icba.ca. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. If you have any questions for the show or our guests, you can send them to info@howestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.